Hello, Jordan.
Hey James,
How's it going today?
pretty good, man.
All right, that's awesome. I want to thank you for coming into my place to record this episode of the podcast. Before we started this recording, when we were talking, you and I have had great conversations. We
hmm
talk about stuff as deep and as rich as like spirituality and like the meaning of being a good worker and a good, citizen and such. We also talk about stuff that's incredibly fun, like video games and music and stuff like that. But when we were setting up this time to record together, you sent me a list of stuff that you would want to talk about, stuff that really interests you. And one of the things that you targeted was cultures, certain cultures that have grabbed your attention and perhaps you've visited over the times that you've traveled. And we'll get into your history of being kind of worldly versed, because I'm not. Like, I've only ever left the country to go to Canada. That's the farthest I've ever gone. But like you, I know you have stories to tell for that as well. But yeah, in terms of cultures, what cultures kind of stand out to you that you've visited, have researched, and are interesting you currently?
All right, so I guess one of the ones that I haven't visited this culture, so to speak, but like the Maya, Inca, Central American, Southern American,
Okay.
Mesoamerican, right? That's really been interesting for me for a long time. Of course, pyramids in Egypt, all that. But the one that I was really fond of that grew on me was uh, what you find in the Middle East, right?
Okay.
I don't know what to, we'll just call it Middle Eastern
Yeah,
culture,
sure.
you know.
Yep.
Uh, I had gone over there a couple of times while I was in the Marine Corps, and that that really was an eye-opening experience, of course.
Yeah.
And it's not that I didn't have any real thought of, I just figured I was going from one sandbox to another, but just meeting and interacting with people over there, like we got to go into some of the towns. We got to
Yeah.
go into De Hook. I think that's how you say it.
Okay.
It's the capital. I think it's the capital of Kurdistan.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the Kurds?
I mean, I know that they exist, but I don't
hmm
know anything about them specifically.
They they're kind of like mini America
Okay.
over there. So they were super friendly to us all the time, and a lot of the Kurdish, I think it's the Kurdish Defense Force. Uh, I forget. I'm blanking on the
It's all good.
name of their fighting forces over there, but
But they're a
a lot.
defensive team.
Yeah, they constantly had to patrol their borders. Like they're not a recognized nation by any country,
Okay.
so they're under threat of all sorts of people, right?
Okay.
So they're really a resilient people, Middle Eastern culture, but they incorporate Western ideas, and they have all sorts of different religions, and we saw mosques, we saw churches,
What
you
kinds of
know.
churches?
Um, I don't remember, just Catholic, I'd assume.
Okay. Well,
You
that's what I
know,
was asking, if there was a certain denomination or if it was non-denominational. Like,
well, I guess it might be Orthodox
okay.
over there. I'm not entirely positive. Excuse me.
No, that's fine.
But
I find it interesting because like you're talking about the Middle East, like just broadly speaking, and like I mean, sadly, we as Americans, we have a very unique view, I'd say, of what life is like over there. And I honestly, I don't think it's correct. Even what I pretend to know about this period of time and also this culture as well, this melting pot of cultures, it's like, I mean, sadly, most people think of the Middle East as just this entirely aggressive area,
yeah,
one
right.
that goes against Christianity, churches, women's rights, stuff like that. And I find it just interesting right now that you said that you saw churches there,
hmm
and so even then, that in of itself is teaching me about something that I know very little of. And you
Okay.
mentioned just in passing, you were in the Marine Corps. And this is something that just before we started recording, I just wanted to make sure, hey, is this something that, you want to talk about? You said yes, because I find that fascinating. Like,
hmm
my father, we've talked about this as well. My father was in the Navy, so I have some just adjacent history with our armed services and such. But you're actually someone who deployed and who has gone abroad in the name of our country, and not everyone appreciates the military. I do. I feel that you do as well. But I wonder if you could share a little bit about what led you to want to join. I mean, what are your opinions on U.S. relations like in terms of a military, and just if you could share any insight about your time with the Marines.
Yeah, of course. I'd be happy to. And I think I've mentioned one of the reasons that I had wanted to enlist growing up. I used to see these commercials on TV that it showed two guys climbing like a sheer cliff.
Yep, yeah, we did talk about this.
Okay. It goes up to like a little plateau, and then they're fighting it looks like the Balrog from Lord of the Rings.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I just thought that was super cool. And, Marine Corps advertising is usually pretty, what's the word?
It really sells the sense of adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't always think I would have gone the infantry route, but when I got a little bit older and kind of just seeing some of the things or witnessing some of the things that we got to growing up, it kind of pushed me more into that route,
Okay.
And yeah, to also playing Halo kind of
Yeah.
pushed me to do it too.
Yeah.
But no, and for sure, it's a little bit of a culture shock going over there.
Yeah.
I mean, let alone enlisting in the military, that's a culture shock no matter the branch.
Yeah.
Respect to all the branches, all the servicemen and women.
Yep.
And to touch on the relations with other countries, it's kind of. I've always said that we should pull our troops home and just secure our borders.
Yeah.
Kind of fix ourselves.
Yeah.
Kind of like what's going on now with the southern border and the north up here too. But now that all that's kind of going on, not necessarily in the Middle East, but Russia, Ukraine,
Yeah.
that's a whole big debacle, right? And
Yep.
I used to see people say like, Big Brother America or whatever, always putting their nose where it don't belong. And
Right.
now we have all these people in other countries around the world that are like, no, say it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we want you guys, or
Yeah.
you need to be here. Some people are saying our servicemen and women need to be in these other places. And it's like, well, that's not the motherland, right? It's not home.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that the initial, kind of hate to say it, but the initial invasion in Iraq when we first went to war, right? That wasn't. I think it's more or less been confirmed that there's like false pretenses.
Right. Yeah. That's
no WMDs.
That's pretty much what's known now in the history books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's sad because
It's very sad.
you do have a ton of great people over there. I mean, like I was talking about the Kurds, it's not just them. There's people in Kuwait, Iraq, Afghan. It's just, and it's real sad too that when that pullout of Afghanistan happened, obviously that left a bad taste in a lot of veterans' mouths, especially like
Yeah.
I had brothers that were over there, and we had senior Marines that had been over there before us too, and you kind of build up a rapport,
Well,
right?
yeah.
But I mean, when you think about it, all these extremist groups, all these people kind of acting out against our government, in some ways they're justified, right? Like imagine if growing up all we knew was war and destruction,
Well, yeah.
death.
Yep.
Like it's not a video game, right?
Right.
When they grow up, I mean, some of them kids, they grow up and their home village is leveled, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean, they're living in mud huts and stuff. What's normal for us here, there's a normal over there that is similar, but it's also very different.
Yeah.
But one thing that I have a really great appreciation for now is their cuisine, that culture's food and the spices, the aromas. We'd sometimes be lucky enough where we'd roll into a little town, city, and we'd be able to kind of do like a, I don't know, pull up through a fast food drive-through, and
Yeah.
put an order in real quick and
Yeah.
dip out, I guess. But that's just because of the area that we were in.
Yeah.
It was secure and friendly. We never really had to experience any
Hostility.
hostility with the populace. So
Well, I like learning about cultures, hence why you're a great person to talk to about this. Like, in just talking about food, like
Mhm.
what were some examples of some things that you had to eat and drink over there that you really enjoyed?
So, have you heard of shawarma?
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean that's huge. You got
really.
Aladdin's in town. You got
Okay.
over in Moorhead off 8th Street. There's New Roz Kebab.
Okay.
That's owned by a Kurdish family actually.
Is
They
that
they
okay?
came over here.
I've never been there before, but now I want to go. So
Check it
that's
out.
cool.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I mean it's lamb. Sometimes you can get chicken, beef, uh, but kind of depends on the restaurant you go to.
Yeah. No, definitely. And you said something that I think is really, really profound, and that, like, you know, we in America, we're like the safest country on the planet. We're
Mhm.
also like the richest too. We've got oceans on either sides. We've got allies on either sides as well. And right now, where you guys, the viewers can't see this, but like we're sitting in my own apartment in a air conditioned, well heated, with my own fridge. We're drinking soda. I mean, the microphone we're talking into is hundreds of dollars alone. I'm not trying to flex. I'm just saying that like we have so much in excess that we can do that. We can wear these cool sweatshirts and go to movies and such. And like over there, you're right. Their village might be leveled and they might live in these dwellings in squalor, and then that shapes ultimately their viewpoint on whoever comes over to their place. And we as Americans, you and I are Christians, we're conservatives, like
Mhm.
we have a patriotic bend, but like we also understand that just because we err on the side of good for the US, it doesn't mean we're always going to do good when we go over there. Hence, like you're saying, the war in Iraq essentially started under false pretenses, and it's just it's interesting to look back on it now and to see like history is the greatest teacher. And I just I just find that really interesting to dissect. And I wonder now, like you speak back on your time with the Marines with a certain amount of reverence, which is good because I know some people who have served and they're really bitter by it. You
Mhm.
don't seem bitter by it, and so I wonder for anyone that's listening, and the podcast isn't huge. Like on average, I get maybe a couple, 10 if I'm lucky, maybe a couple, 50-ish views. But like for anyone
Mhm.
who's listening who's potentially thinking about growing up and going into any kind of service, uh, what would you have to say to them?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, it definitely took me until I was 20, 20 to come to the conclusion I was going to enlist. And that was after years of, since I was like maybe 13 or 14, trying to think seriously about it. I mean, obviously, you're just a kid, you don't know what's what.
Yeah.
You can get a little bit of a better idea these days with the internet and how it all
Yep.
operates now. They got videos of boot camp,
100%.
all that. Um, you just got to have the right mindset. You got to be positive. I mean, Marine Corps recruit training. If you go through that, you don't got to go through any other boot camp. Um, that was also kind of another. I thought maybe I'd stay in the military, make a career.
Okay.
I didn't know if I'd be in the Corps a whole 20 years, so I figured might as well also go that route because then if I wanted to jump ship to another branch, I could just join. I didn't
Yeah.
need to go through the boot camp again. Um,
And what did you do specifically while you were in the Marines, by
yeah,
the way?
I'm in 0331. That's a machine gunner.
Okay.
The 03, so that's MOS, Military Occupation Specialty.
Okay.
That's just your signifier for your job.
Okay.
03 is what we call the grunt corps. Um, I think 01 is admin, like
All right.
office work.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't remember all of them, but I think it goes up to like 08 or 09.
Okay.
and the differences between jobs and whatnot. Um, kind of lost track of thought
No, it's
there.
cool. It's totally fine. It's just, I hear, if you go on the internet, if you, talk to anyone on the street, you hear these really negative connotations regarding our military service about
Oh, for sure.
recruitment is down,
Yeah.
morale is low.
Hmm.
What's the point? But, now, again, us being conservative and such, like we have a president in the office right now at the time of this recording under Donald Trump
Hmm.
who appears to be taking the country, at least on paper, in a much more pro-American way, in terms of
Yeah.
the economy, how you're talking about more of a less involved, worldly type of way, perhaps more of an isolationist type way, which I'm in agreement as well. I think that we, as a nation that is this developed, we have a sense of duty to the world, but perhaps not as much as we currently do. But I see now that we're a couple months removed past the inauguration day,
Hmm.
again at the time of this recording, like life kind of just seems better to me. Like,
I feel that.
yeah, like I get the sense that things are kind of just leveling out, becoming more normal, and I hope eventually the gas prices will go down again. But like I I do hope that people continue to enlist, and there always will be, but like I think that hearing more positive based perspectives like you have regarding cultures and experiencing foods and the camaraderie, I think it's just good to hear that stuff, hearing a more positive outlook versus mostly negative stuff that you can find anywhere.
Yeah, 100%. That negative crap that's everywhere online. I mean, I think I told you this too when I worked at Planet Fitness a couple years ago. Uh, there were a couple people now and then that would just, they were friendly or whatever and get to know you a little bit better here and there. And then once they found out I was in the military, they're like, "Oh
Yeah,
God, why?" And then I
right.
told them I was in the Marine Corps, and they're like, "Oh, that's the worst one." And I'm like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah,
And it's just that stuff can be disheartening, but at the end of the day, I do my best not to judge essentially.
yeah,
Like it, yeah, you can hate on whatever you want to hate on, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of these people need to realize that the reason why you're allowed to be who you are
yeah,
and do what you do in your day life,
yeah,
excuse me, um, are because of the people that, for how many years have we been in conflict since we've been a country, right?
mm-hmm,
And all those people that have put their life on the line, gave the ultimate sacrifice, and we can sit here today and have this
yeah,
conversation
yeah,
or drive our happy butts to the gym,
yeah, 100%.
And it's like, again, over in the Middle East, I had an idea, I had like an inkling of what to expect,
Yeah,
but then sometimes we go drive around, we leave the wire, is what it's called when you leave the premise of your base,
yep,
and drive through little villages that were just flattened, nothing
yeah,
left, but nothing but rubble. And, it's sad because half the time there probably could have been families in there. Or,
yeah,
I don't know the situation, of course,
right, of course.
but um, and then yeah, of course we got our own problems here in America, and I think we need to work on that. And one big thing that I think the military should try to capitalize on now, especially the Marine Corps. I don't know if you've seen this or heard this, but uh, there was a Marine Corps unit or battalion, I can't remember. Anyways, some Marines were sent down to the southern border
Okay,
a month ago.
okay.
Yeah,
I
about a
don't I
month
don't think
ago.
I have heard of this.
And it's just like the guys are there, the boys are there to defend the home turf. They're helping Texas Rangers, Border Patrol, border agents, all that.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously that stuff has not received adequate funding for how long? You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
Uh, but now that, you know, the military is there, because I think you got some army guys down there too. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it's just like they need it. They should capitalize on that by making some recruitment advertisement videos. Just, you want to deploy in your own country. You know
Mm.
what I mean?
Wow, yeah, that's a
Uh,
great point.
it's you're still no matter what you do in the military, it's an honor. I think it's a honorable and righteous thing to do.
Me too.
But I think it would have more of a lasting impact, being able to do certain things here,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to say that like doing what we did overseas
Right.
and having that happen here, because then that's on the home turf.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't want that
Right.
necessarily, but it's just it's a good camaraderie, right?
Yeah.
And it's a good I think way to get younger people interested. Like I'm doing something good for my country,
Yeah.
actually. Uh, and then when yeah, I kind of lost my other point.
No, you're cool. But while you think that, like, you literally just kind of blew my mind here, because, like, again, a big negative that people levy against the military just at large is, what good is it of you to go over there?
Right.
Like, why are you there? Leave people alone.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, there's some truth to that. Like, at some point, it's like, yes, what are we doing over there? But you bring up this great idea of having more of a home territorial type environment for us to work in. But, like, even that, like, people will read headlines of Marines go to the southern border, and they might see that as an act of aggression,
Against
like,
Mexico.
yeah, like,
Hmm.
it's so bad we have to send in the literal military. The border patrol can't handle it. Our military's got to get in there. But you're talking about it from this other perspective of a sense of pride and a sense of security, where
Hmm.
it's like, look, you should have opportunities to not only enlist, you should have opportunities to stay here, and
Yeah.
to really be on U.S. soil. And yeah, like, that's something that, again, I hadn't thought of until just this very moment. But, like, another thing we hear about people who have served, who sadly have lesser experiences, are like, they're gone for years at a time. They come home, and then there's the reverse culture shock of
Yeah.
coming back to America, and they don't know how to adapt. And keeping them perhaps more at home literally could prevent that. So you really might be onto something there.
And hey, that's a good point too, bringing up it is kind of a culture shock coming back. I mean, it obviously context matters, your experience
Yeah.
overseas matters on a deployment, but um, it was kind of funny because you go over, you had some contact, you could have a phone, a laptop if you wanted, and we'd have Wi-Fi now and then, but for the most part, you're not really in touch with the outside world.
Yeah.
And then when you get back, it's like, oh, what's the new top five pop songs? What's the
Yeah.
recent best movie
Yeah.
that
It's
came out?
barbecues and ball games, type stuff.
Exactly. It was great for us because just the brotherhood that we have in the unit that I was in. It was very gung ho, as you could imagine, and we're all excited to deploy and we're all excited to go home, of course,
Yeah.
in one piece.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's just, yeah, I do wish there was a better way to help, veterans and stuff who come back, because, like, we hear about, how the VA is or is not helping some groups, and
Hmm.
it's troubling to hear. But, well, again, I really appreciate the perspective that you're offering on all this stuff, and we'll be jumping around throughout a bunch of topics throughout the course of this podcast. So please, if I ever say something that brings back stuff about the Marine Corps, please, pull us back into that. But sticking with cultures, though,
Yeah.
another thing that you texted me about, and that you also mentioned just off the top here, was like, there's a lot of cool stuff happening with, like, uh, the Egyptians right now, and, like
Yeah.
like the pyramids, and, like, you brought up about these lidar scans happening on the pyramids, and I've only ever read a single headline that potentially shows that the pyramids have these deep chambers that go, like, straight down, like, from their bases and such. And, like, I just
Hmm.
wonder, like, if you've done any additional reading up on that, and even if you haven't, like, what do you think that could be and stuff?
Right. I again, the pyramids, they're just fascinating, right? I've
Yeah.
I've never been. I would love to.
Yeah,
Who
I've only ever
wouldn't?
seen pictures, but yeah.
And like it's you go down all the rabbit holes you want, right? You look at all
Oh
the
yeah.
conspiracies you want. Who knows what's really what? But there's always been kind of this. I never really thought they were tombs. Maybe like pharaohs, kings back in the day were
Yeah.
like, yeah, put me in there. Why not?
Yep.
But with all this recent evidence or studies done, it kind of looks like it's pointing more toward something else entirely. And
Yeah.
they from what I've read, I read something a couple nights ago. They're doing a couple more tests here soon to confirm that there's these like long shafts underneath the pyramid. There's
Yeah.
like 8 of them, and then I think there's 4 like cubic empty areas
Okay.
underneath those pillars,
Yeah.
those columns. And yeah, apparently it spans a couple of kilometers,
Yeah. There's a
which
lot of
is
space on there.
it's crazy because that's twice the height of the tallest building that we've ever built.
Jeepers.
Yeah. Um, and one of the huge thoughts, theories about it online is that it's a power supply plant, kind of like what Nikola Tesla was talking
Oh,
about.
wow.
Um, he had this idea of free wireless energy that would just travel through the air
Yeah.
on a certain like radio frequency, I think.
Yeah, I'm not real familiar with him, but like I know of his, you know, ideas and like his blueprints for stuff, and yeah, that's something that I've heard that he was working on.
And
He was seemingly ahead of his time with that, if that's what he was pursuing.
yeah, yeah, it's I'm by no means like I don't have the smarts for
Yeah,
all this stuff,
neither of us
but
are experts on this stuff.
exactly. And it's just kind of like conjecture and like what I want it to be,
Yeah,
right? But I try to be realistic with it
yeah,
because it could just be uh, the way the earth has shifted, the way that the mantle and
yep,
the ground is
could be.
cracked and stuff
Yeah,
over time. Um, but and to touch on pyramid stuff too, I love like I said, I love the Mesoamerican,
yeah,
and they use lidar in the Amazon
hmm,
several years ago now.
yeah,
I think I was on my first deployment when they first did this, and I can't remember if it was the Yucatan Peninsula or where somewhere in the Amazon, but they flew over an area that hadn't really been explored in a
yeah,
100 years. There's ruins like everywhere in there, and
yep,
I think that would just be so much fun to hop on a flight and
yeah,
go try to explore. Who wants to do that in the Amazon though?
yeah.
And be a little, uh,
A little sketchy.
yeah, just a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah, but Joe Rogan, shout out, Rogan, he's the best in the business to do it. His podcast is what I want to emulate, and so I listened to him a bunch, and he's talked about lidar. I mean, every which way, and
Okay.
he's talked about the ruins and stuff like that, and how there's these quote unquote new discoveries, and now, like I mentioned, previously, this is what's leading to this discussion about the pyramids. Uh, there's so much stuff regarding like yeah, we don't really even fully know what the pyramids actually are. Like you said,
Hmm.
like the really the leading theory, the idea that's been around for years is that they're tombs
Hmm.
for the pharaohs or for the gods or whatever. But like I've always, even as a kid, I was like, well, why go to all that work just for one single person, for one single
Yeah.
purpose? You would think that there'd be some other things going on there, and there's rooms upon rooms in there, and there's like booby traps, and they're like, well, it's to defend the king's gold, and it's like, okay, well, again, like it seems a little too, a whole lot of work for not a whole lot of payoff, so it's like
Right.
the one thing I heard about in the one article I did read regarding how the pyramids are supposedly like really deep underneath is that there's this idea that actually feeds into your energy idea is that these huge spaces were meant for like these apocalyptic type of bunkers that
Oh.
that lots of people could get into at one time,
Okay.
and they could be somewhat self-sustaining for a period of time if needed be, and they would need things like a water supply and food preservation and energy
Yep.
like you're talking about. So you know, yeah, everything we're talking about right now is up for debate and for conspiracy theories and the whole deal. But we just live in such a fascinating time to where like we thought the door was closed on the pyramids, and then our Twitter beeps, and we're like, whoa, they found tunnels under the pyramid. Like
Right?
yeah,
It is actually really crazy that like if you just think about us doing this here now and we could hop on a plane and
Yeah.
fly cross country in
Yep.
a few hours, right? It's the spread of the wealth of information in today's age is, I mean, as far as we know, right? That's never been a thing before.
Yeah.
Um, One thing with the uh, tunnels, chambers, and whatnot found down there too. Apparently, I could be wrong, but I think it's the Egyptian god Osiris. He has a hall of records.
Okay.
Apparently, it's supposed to be. It could be under the Great Pyramid.
Yeah.
What they found, right? It could be in there. It's supposed to have a bunch of knowledge. I don't know if that's scrolls, books, or what,
Yeah.
but knowledge from pre-flood, like 13,000 years ago and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be really interesting if they find, this stuff does exist and then they
Yeah.
can get down in there. I mean, and I guess I don't think I've heard about the insides there being used as like a bunker, but that's really cool too. I've
Yeah.
never thought of
I
that.
have no idea if it's real or not, but again, in the one article I read about the new LiDAR scans, that was what someone mentioned. So maybe it just came from some intern at the New York Post. I don't know, but
Right.
I read that and I was like, that makes sense. If the
Yeah.
tunnels are that big and they go that deep, I was like, what would you put down there? You could put either, gold upon gold or people upon people, so it's like, there's stuff like that. But yeah, we live in such an interesting time, and really the most advanced time because like we both have cell phones. We can Google anything we want, and we could read articles upon articles. And what's interesting is that I think you might be right about if the pyramids have more rooms than even we found previously.
Mhm.
There's got to be some information down there that we have no idea what it is.
Writing on the walls,
It's just something,
and there's, because I don't remember the date, the years that they can, like hieroglyphs, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
can kind of date that
Yeah,
stuff. And it's obvious, there's an obvious gap of like the legitimate hieroglyphs, and then you can tell the ones that were kind of just carved and not
yeah,
etched the way that they had
yep,
been.
yeah,
And I can't remember if they consider that like the difference between pre-dynastic, so pre-dynastic Egyptians and all that
yeah.
were the ones that built the pyramids and hieroglyphs and had the crazy vases and jars. Have you seen that?
No.
So, what's his name? I think it's like Uncharted X or something on YouTube, but he's been on Joe Rogan a couple
Oh,
times.
okay.
Uh, and he does a lot of work mainly with Egypt, but he's been in the Americas too. Uh, but yeah, Uncharted X was saying something like the vases are so they're done in such a way that we can't replicate them with modern instruments,
Like tools and
modern
such. So are
yeah.
you describing like a vase that has a face on it or like in it or like what are you describing
Oh,
here?
I'm sorry. It's so like a jar, a
Okay.
container,
Okay.
and
Like a glass jar?
uh,
Or just something because I don't even know if they
some of them are
had
made out of granite.
granite.
Yeah, and I'm not going to explain it right here. I just think it's fascinating because I didn't even really know these things were a thing until a
Well,
couple of years
I didn't
ago.
even know they could cut through granite. Like
That's the thing. It's like the blocks, the placement
yeah.
of the blocks on the pyramids.
Yeah.
I mean, any megalithic structure like the pyramid, whether it's Egypt or the Americas or Asia somewhere, they're fit so tight together. It's
Yeah.
just perfect,
Yeah.
and you can't fit a like razor blade
Yeah,
in
the
there.
mathematics of it are so precise.
Right.
I was going to ask you about that too, but I really want to hear about this glass vase thing or these
Hmm.
containers. So like what? So they're made out of something. Let's just call it granite. Like what is supposedly inside them?
Well, honey has been found in some. I think like sometimes they were used for a pet's remains,
Okay.
I think.
All right.
But yeah, these things are just so precise. Like take my bottle of mellow yellow here.
Yep.
So imagine this is granite,
Yep.
you know? Granite's one of the toughest. I think it is just a rank below diamond
Okay.
in like material hardness.
Sure.
Uh, but yeah, so they had a whole bottle, like jar,
Yeah.
and then there were two handles. There were just circles on the sides,
Okay.
and like the dimensions and like because they've done laser imaging on it to
Right, right, right.
like map it,
Yeah.
and it's just like the opening of it is so precise, and
Yeah.
then the way that the handles are formed,
Yeah.
they couldn't have been attached,
Mm.
and they're just perfectly smooth like cylinder handles, and then there's holes, so like they were used to carry,
Sure, sure.
maybe they were string through the
Yeah, yeah,
holes.
yeah, yeah.
And I guess that kind of falls into the ancient lost technology, right?
Yeah, this is what I was going to talk about. Like,
I think it's just like a lost art form.
yeah.
There were definitely things that, uh, okay, I don't remember the name of this city, this site in Mexico, but if you stand at any point in this opening, this field surrounding a pyramid in Mexico, you can whistle or whisper, and
Yeah.
you can, it's like you're standing right next to me, but
Okay.
we're 200 yards away.
Oh, okay.
There's a couple different sites like that, I believe, in Mexico. But the acoustics, right?
Yeah.
So frequency based technology.
Yeah.
There's if you could, I'm gonna butcher it, but there's this machine called the Ray Rife machine. It's a frequency type of machine,
Okay.
and it's been used in medicinal practices the past few decades, but it's become a lot more popular recently.
Okay.
Different. This is medical, but I mean, it could, in a way, this is like how they would have used frequency to, say, shape rock.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Or have you heard of Coral Reef down in Florida?
No, I haven't.
It's or Coral Castle. I'm sorry. It's made from a coral reef.
Okay.
So apparently, it was done by one dude, and like he started it, I think 1905. Took him a few years. It was done 1910s, and he had only ever had one assistant, but he never let the assistant watch him work.
Okay.
And apparently, one day the guy came just to talk to the builder, and the builder was doing something funky with this big block of coral. I don't know the specifics here, like dimensions and stuff, but it was a big block.
Yeah.
And apparently the assistant is on record saying it looked like magic. It looked like he was making it levitate.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that there's some like that's kind of a fantasy thing, right? But
Yeah.
I think that is based in truth. Maybe it is a lost art form, and maybe it's just something we can't do anymore because we've evolved differently now. I mean,
You talk about the levitation thing?
yeah,
Yeah.
like maybe that was just something that was innate in humans,
Yeah.
pre-flood, let's say.
Yeah.
Because then look at like recorded history didn't really start till what, a
Oh
couple
gosh.
thousand years before.
Don't look at me.
ours.
But yeah.
And I think it's the Sumerians or Babylonians, right?
Yeah.
And that's still only a couple thousand years before Jesus entered the picture.
Hmm.
And who knows what was all going on for those 10,000 years before. But because you, like I was saying earlier with the hieroglyphs, you definitely saw people trying to imitate.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm sure there were stories passed down for a couple centuries about
Yeah.
what the world was like.
Right.
And to kind of bring this back to the new pyramid potential discovery,
Yeah.
I'm really like excited that if there is, a hall of records, maybe it will give us insight and it'll help further the human cause, right?
Yeah.
You would think the good
Yeah. Yeah.
would be the most important thing here.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of avenues we can take that down, but like, I mean, like on a broad scale, because people are like, like, no, you're cool. People are like, the pyramids, we can't build them today even with the best technology we have.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, let's assume for a bit that that's true. I don't know if that totally is, but let's assume that that's true. When we ask people, okay, how do we think these quote primitives who don't even have like a drill bit, how do you think they made the pyramids? People will go, well, it's aliens.
Hammer and chisel.
Yeah, hammer and chisel. But like, we can't explain it. We go to aliens. But okay,
Yep.
if we remove aliens from the equation and take it more to a scientific tool based thing, you're right.
Grounded.
Yeah, ground it. If we were to ground it, I think you might be right in the sense that there are tools that they had that we just don't have. Like maybe there were lost mechanisms used for moving that much weight, for getting the placements of the blocks that correct. And like I had never heard of this levitation thing, this
Okay.
theory with that. But like I mean, yeah, like if we were to transport back in time and go to the time of the pilgrims, and if we were to show them the iPhone, they would think that's like witchcraft. Like
Oh,
they'd be
100%.
like, get out of my face, like you're a demon. Like
Yeah.
what's that glowing rectangle in your hand? And so it's like it's interesting, like
Or maybe sorry to interject here,
no,
but
please.
uh, I guess time travel's been a big one recently from
Yeah,
what I've seen. So yeah, maybe, and I don't know nothing about that stuff, but
yeah.
maybe it was just somebody that wanted to play around and decided to go back
It
and
would be
you know,
it would be cool if some of these really bombastic science fiction things were real, because like you could go down a rabbit hole on YouTube at any point and they're like like top 10 evidence of time travel, and it's like here's a guy wearing Nike shoes,
100 years
yeah,
ago.
100 years ago, and it's like, well, Nike wasn't invented then, it's like there's stuff like that. But like it it is interesting that like
Oh, and to go on again about what you were saying, or like I said earlier, lost art form, and you had just said something about lost knowledge.
yeah.
That made me remember. There's this video I watched the other night talking about forgotten farmers, forgotten foods. I don't know. I
Okay.
don't remember the title of it,
Yeah.
but it was just talking about how even 200 years ago there were farmers that were planting different kinds of vegetables and fruits, and now that's like a lost art. We
Mm.
only because we only grow certain foods to accommodate,
Right,
right?
right, right.
So what's the point of keeping these other things around?
Yeah.
And apparently just a couple centuries goes by, and uh, I could be completely wrong here too. Don't
No, this is all interesting
take it for a
stuff.
try.
This is why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because you're bringing up these ideas that like I just find like really interesting. Like just, not to kneecap you in any way, but like I don't think levitation is possible. Like
Yeah,
as much as I want the Force to be real from Star Wars, I
right.
don't think it is. But it's like there's people look at, I mean, the Bible, they're like Christianity, and they're like, how could a bush just start burning like that?
Yeah.
How could the sea part? How could the Red Sea part just like that?
Hmm.
What do you mean a pillar of fire, a pillar of smoke? People critiques of the Bible, they'll go, well, that's magic, that's witchcraft, that's aliens.
Right.
Where it's like, again, for you and I who have read Scripture, we're like that's the power of Christ. But it's so it's like the same scrutiny that people have against the Bible, like people also scrutinize everything else too. And it's like it's just interesting to think of these things, in regards to that kind of framing.
For sure. It's sometimes I think it's all kind of interconnected.
Yeah,
You know, all these megalithic structures and all the recent sightings of aliens or UFOs, unknown aircraft,
well, yeah, we could
religion.
do a whole bit about that. I mean,
That'd be its own thing.
there's so much in the news right now about unidentified flying objects. I mean, it's crazy.
I've kind of stopped paying attention honestly because it's what are they showing to us that's real and what might be faked.
Yeah,
But and yeah, like to talk about religion and God and all that
yeah.
too. It's kind of funny because I've been playing some Fortnite with some of my high school friends
Okay.
recently. I was telling you we just had a funeral for uh, one of my
Yeah,
friends
yeah. You did mention that.
situation. Yeah, and that was good to reconnect with some dudes that I hadn't seen in a few years.
That's
And
great.
um, we were playing last night, and anyway, the topic of religion came up, and and that's never been really a huge what's the like these guys are like friends for life, even if we don't talk for a year,
Of
two
course.
years, we're
Yeah.
still, how's it going, man?
Yeah.
Like we
We
don't
all
miss a
have those.
beat.
Yep.
Yeah. And, my one buddy, he was like atheist or whatever growing up, and the other guy was like Catholic, this and that,
Yep.
Lutheran. And I think it's just kind of funny to see how we've evolved over the years, and they all kind of generally have this consensus of like God is the universe and like he created it, but they have a hard time believing Jesus Christ was alive, a real person, I mean,
Right.
let alone died, resurrected.
Yeah.
And they kind of were questioning it, this and that. And I didn't think about it in the time, but I should have mentioned, um, well, there were 40 eyewitnesses on the
Yeah.
third day,
Yep.
and they were all women. And back in the day, a woman's word meant nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But you had 40 of them that were just decreeing and crying that the Lord's back,
Yeah.
and I that'd be hard to deny.
It's a very powerful piece of testimony because back then, during those times of eyewitnesses, um, yeah, for saying certain things, I mean, they would just get killed,
Mm-hmm.
or at the very best, air quote best, they'd like have like their property seized,
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. And so, yeah, like there are people who critique and slander Christ, and they're like, well, where's the evidence? And it's like we have reports of eyewitnesses. Okay, well, that's just words written on a piece of paper, and it's like, okay, but you bring up a great point. It's the context of the eyewitnesses. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just something that's just saying like there he is. It's like no, it's like this is literally you're making a public declaration of something that goes beyond human understanding. The
Yep.
idea that someone could die, be confirmed dead, killed, and then come back. And this wasn't like Jesus died in the halls of a castle and just there was just the execution. I mean, the crucifixion was a public display
Oh yeah.
of his death. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is something that was widely talked about amongst the people back then.
Hundreds, well, I think probably thousands of people
I'm
were
sure.
witness.
Yeah. And
Um,
and like it says that like in the aftermath, like, the earth, split open and like there were these storms and such. And so like there's you can't just wipe your hands clean of that. Like
mhm.
there's things that people have to digest in the aftermath of this stuff. And it's yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I really enjoy talking about these big things. Like, I mean, even like going back to like the idea of like time travel for a bit. Like, I want to,
Yeah.
seamless segue, of course, but we're going to go everywhere.
Oh
But
yeah.
like, like black holes, I find incredibly fascinating.
Yes.
Like just these literal voids in space. We can't see the actual black hole itself. We can only observe it by what's going inside of it because that's generating light.
Yep.
Like that's crazy. And so there's this the predominant idea regarding a black hole is that once something goes in, it gets completely erased and deleted. It's the destruction of matter itself.
Yep.
But then I've heard, I don't know if these are confirmed. I don't think they are, but
Mhm.
I try to listen to a lot of Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
He's like, he says that he's your personal astrophysicist.
Yeah.
He's my personal astrophysicist. Like he's taking me to
I
school
do enjoy the
all the
way
time.
he kind of preaches his
Yeah,
expertise.
100%. And I think it was either him or I guess he had on his own podcast. His podcast is called Star Talk, by the way. Check that out.
It's good.
Yeah, he was at one point talking about the idea of a white hole, where
Oh
on the
yeah.
other side of a black hole, or other side, or, across space time, that as you enter the black hole, whatever happens happens, and then something would eject out on the other side, out of the form of a white hole, because nothing can leave a black hole, but the inverse of a black hole be white, the inverse of going in would exiting
Night and day.
night and day. And there was this idea that, okay, if that's possible, then could that be the type of framing device that's used for time travel? Because like there's these things, like with wormholes, it's like how do you get from one point to the next? The common idea is that you fold a piece of paper. So rather than going across the whole planet of paper, you fold the paper, you punch a hole through it, and you're there instantaneously. That's the
Yeah.
idea of wormhole travel. And so it's like that in of itself is like a form of time travel if you want to get real technical, because instead of taking 10 years to go from point A to point B, or 10 light years, it
Hmm.
would take you 1 light year or an instant, and it's like, okay, you're transversing space-time differently in a lesser amount of time than you normally would. And so, like, yeah, with black holes, white holes, wormholes, like, space is fascinating.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it throws you for a loop
Yeah.
too.
And so this is why I want aliens to be real. Because,
Oh,
like,
I
if
do
if
too.
aliens are real, and I personally think that they are, like, I think just from a scientific position of how large the universe is and
Hmm.
how creative the Lord is in making creation, like, he clearly has some design for all this space.
Yeah.
So because, like, yeah, like, if aliens are real, then it's like, okay, what else that we thought was purely science fiction could be science fact,
And
you know?
I I I entertain that thought all the time. I mean, yeah, we're huge Halo
Oh
buffs,
yeah.
Star Wars,
Yep.
all that, right? I for a long time I didn't know what to think of it, but I believe that if you know life were to evolve on another planet, say somewhat Earth-like,
Yeah.
sure, the atmosphere would be different, this and that, right? But we are made in His image, and I
Yeah.
think that they would be to some extent too. I
Yeah.
think an intelligent spacefaring species would be humanoid. Like
Mm.
maybe they don't have ears and eyes like
Yeah.
us. Maybe there's differences here and there. Maybe they
Yeah.
have bones growing out of the top of their
Yeah.
head.
We would share design similarities, is
Exactly.
what you're saying.
And like a lot of okay for time kind of jumping a topic here, but have you heard of like the DMT realm at all?
No, take me to school on this. Like, what are you referring to?
Okay, dimethyl triple hide, I think is how you say it.
Okay.
DMT. Uh, it's a drug,
Yeah.
but it's also something that your body naturally creates
Okay.
in your moment of death.
Mm. Okay.
And all these people that I've heard, use it, experience it, kind of like ayahuasca. It 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 brings you to this realm, the DMT realm, right? And then there's DMT elves and all these other beings there, and
Yeah.
almost everybody says that does it. They say they meet God, they meet the Creator.
Mm.
It's only like a 10-15 minute thing, I guess,
Yeah.
but they all say it's the best time of their lives,
Yeah.
and it's just like pure bliss, I guess.
Yeah.
One thing too is that a lot of what I've heard as far as people experiencing that drug is corroborated with what near death experiencers go through.
Yes.
There's a definitely a connection to like, whatever kind of other plane of existence it might be. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's another dimension or if it's outside our universe,
Right.
right? Because that's one thing too. I think that our entire universe is the firmament, right?
Okay.
I think that is kind of like a set in place barrier that we're not really ever supposed to exceed.
Sure.
Like say if we did develop warp drive.
Yeah.
This you mentioned that and it got me thinking about there's this engine idea called the Alcubierre warp drive.
Okay.
I probably mispronounced it, but I think it was created back in the 70s, 80s. It's supposed to distort space-time gravity
Yeah.
in front of the ship, and it like pulls it
Yeah.
down
Yep.
underneath the ship, and it like a treadmill. It helps you move
Yeah. Yeah.
faster,
Yeah.
or escalator
Yep.
going
I
up.
see the vision.
And I guess the I can't remember if it's JPL, Japanese Propulsion Laboratory. I don't know. One of those space agencies recently has kind of had a little bit of a breakthrough with it, and that's always super exciting to see because, well, look at SpaceX.
Yeah.
They their rockets, first reusable rocket ever. Now they have this new type of engine that combines. I think it's kind of like old tech with new tech,
Mm-hmm.
but they're saying like this new engine, this prototype plane.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is exactly, but it it'll blow everything out of the water. Like it'll be able to hit a certain percentage of light speed is
Yeah.
what they're saying when it all comes to fruition. And just hearing things like that is nuts. Because if we could cut down the time to even travel to uh, the nearest star system,
Yeah.
Alpha Centauri,
Mm-hmm.
4.2 light years away. So if you travel at light speed, it'd be 4.2 years to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could take, like you were saying, open up a little wormhole,
Yep.
and then you get there in 4 seconds or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
you're not gonna miss on a total of 8.5 years of
Yeah.
people on Earth. 8.5 years would have gone by just in your travel time.
Yeah.
Um, and that's something that I think is really kind of just mind-boggling,
Oh,
right?
it
Like you,
is.
you try to think about this vast expanse of
Yeah.
nothing, like in Star Wars and Halo, all these sci-fi uh,
Franchise.
franchises. Thank
Yep.
you. They, whenever they have like a faster than light type of space travel, one thing that people like to pick apart is, well, how come nobody ever lands in a star or flies through asteroids,
Yeah.
or like we got a couple asteroid belts in our solar system.
Right.
Like the Oort cloud is massive. It encompasses our solar system. Then you have the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Like the closest that two asteroids ever get is like hundreds, thousands of miles apart.
Hmm.
You know, uh, which is kind of crazy to think that we have, quote unquote, so many close calls of asteroids coming to Earth.
Yep.
Like Apophis, have you heard of that?
Was that the one that was supposed to get like really close to us, like in like 2030 or something like that? Or
Yeah,
okay.
2030. And it's like, it will be the closest an asteroid's ever come,
Yeah.
like that we've been tracking.
Hmm. Okay.
Obviously, there's been some that have like blown up in atmosphere, actually hit the planet.
Yeah.
But this, like, it's coming between us and the moon.
Okay.
And like, that's pretty scary.
That's pretty close.
Yeah. And it's like huge. I think they say it's the size of Texas or
Oh,
something.
wonderful.
So that's planet ending.
Yeah.
Um, but like, yeah, man, the sooner that we can get like everybody just get your shit together,
Yeah.
let's work in unison. We need to, there's so many things out there that unfortunately are such bygone thoughts for, people in the governments of the world. And
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know where I was going to go with
No,
that.
you're cool. 'Cause you throw out so many things. Again, this is why I knew you'd be a good guest. Because I was as you were talking and I was listening, I was putting pins in things that you were saying. I'm like, I gotta go back to that. Gotta go back to that. You brought up like the whole near death experience thing and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's like those stories are cool and they're very romantic and whatnot. But I also think that there's nuggets of truth in them as well. Because like I mean, like there's that kid who reportedly died, and he told a story in a book. It's heaven is for real.
Yeah.
Like that's great. That's remarkable. But there are these stories of people who have these near death experiences or are like quote like clinically dead for a couple of minutes, and they always there's some differences. Like sometimes there was a lady who she died, and I don't mean to mistell her story. I can't even remember her
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that this lady died, and she said that like she was taken up into another realm, like on the back of a butterfly, and it was like it's
Oh.
like she's really having this experience, and she like got to see her relatives and stuff. And like then you hear people who have more traditional based things where it's like they die and everything goes to white, and they feel blissful and at peace and whatnot. But like there's always this, regardless of how we get there, when they get there, how long they're there. I always hear this running thread that it's this sense of overwhelming peace, calm, tranquility, a sense of energy,
Mm-hmm.
and
Warmth, kind of.
warmth. And whether that's related to this DMT chemical that kind of like perhaps makes the body feel good, or maybe it's related to like something more in the vein of dopamine, or if it is like just like the Lord taking complete control. Like there are some experiences that are categorized that you think this doesn't make any sense at all. Like, and then there's other things where it's like, well, that sounds like a pretty blissful exit from Earth, but like,
Yeah.
but it is something really interesting to think about. But also like on the inverse of that, I've heard stories and I've watched like interviews of people of people who have had near-death experiences, and they describe the exact opposite, where they're like, hell is real. Like they're like
Yeah.
they go like all they feel is this overwhelming blackness
Mhm.
that just makes them depressed and like there's no sense of hope, there's no light. They can see fire and it's like rapidly approaching, and then they, the doctors, bring them
Oh,
back, and it's like, so it's like, again, much like black holes versus white holes, you have the literal opposites of blissful peace going up in the white, then you have the fiery inferno and the blackness and the despair going down, and it's like that's crazy to think about as well. And then
yeah.
also like with warp travel and like the Star Trek engines and stuff like that, like again with uh, DeGrasse Tyson on Star Talk, people always ask him like, "Will we ever get a hyperdrive, or warp drive? Can we do that?" And Tyson is like, "Look, we might, because we're going to keep advancing as much as we can, but
Mhm.
he's like, it probably won't be in our lifetime, which is
Yeah.
sad for us, but like." He's like, you think about, like you said, like eventually we're going to have these engines that can imitate a fraction of the speed of light, because like we went from the horse to the car to these new Tesla vehicles that can go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds,
Yeah.
and it's like imagine what we'll do 500 years from now, like where it's like, can you believe they ever drove a Tesla? We have transportation, it's like,
Yeah.
like they might think of our supercars as the bicycle, like,
You would, and hopefully at that point, there's like these personal devices where you can,
oh yeah.
whether you open up your own little work gate, step through it, or
Yeah,
maybe it's like a suit thing you wear and you can fly anywhere.
yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
You also mentioned Elon Musk, which I mean he's in the news for I mean
Ton of
any
reasons.
number of reasons, from being an uber rich billionaire to making rocket ships to making cars to being a part of the president's cabinet. This guy never has a slow day at the office. But one thing that happened recently was that there were those astronauts that were stuck in
Mhm.
orbit for like months.
I think 9 months they extra they were up there.
Crazy.
So I think they were up there a total of a year and a half.
Probably. I mean, but like NASA, and like no discredit to NASA, like they were like, we can't get them. Like our rockets, they're in the shop, whatever,
Yeah.
like, and then Elon comes and says, well, I'll send a rocket up there.
We'll send one up as soon as we can.
Yeah, just on the express,
Yeah.
and like he did it, and he brought these people back, and it's like
Yeah.
these people were literally lost in space, like, and
Oh, that's such a nightmare.
I
I've
know,
actually had those nightmares too for whatever reason. Just I don't know if it's Halo related or what, living out a fantasy in my dream, but just getting ejected from a ship hull because it got
yeah,
blown apart or
yep,
something, and then it's like I wake up
yeah.
sometimes I don't.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, that's literally like Halo, like at the end of Halo 3, when the Forward Unto Dawn gets split in half,
Oh, right.
one half crashes back on Earth, and the Master Chief, spoilers for Halo 3, he gets blasted across space, and ends up on Requiem, and then we got Halo 4 and whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, it's like yeah, like that's a cool dream, but also kind of a semi quasi scary dream. But like Elon Musk, he brings these astronauts back, and it's just so sad because at the time of this recording, there are people who aren't celebrating that. They're instead going after Tesla and the Cybertrucks. And at
Yup.
the time of this recording, in our news headlines, there
Ain't that some funny, you know what?
yeah, there's a bunch of just people are wrecking Teslas and destroying dealerships and lighting cars on fire, and people
Like
are getting hurt.
literally it's a vehicle to mitigate carbon emission, right?
Yeah.
Over the course of its life.
Yep.
Now, yeah, there's going to be some emissions going into building these things, as
Yep.
there always will be, but our technology has progressed so much to the point that carbon emissions have gone down worldwide in the past few decades. The Tesla situation is crazy too, because that's like the number one electric car
It
company
is. Yep.
on the planet. Great vehicles. um, and you got all these people that want to, they're calling Musk a Nazi because of his "My heart goes out to you" salute and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make it look a certain type of way if you take a
Yep.
frame
Yeah.
image.
I personally think that hand gesture was a stupid choice to make because
Yeah,
it's very, like you
reminiscent.
said, yeah, you can easily mistake it for something very heinous, but like, he's explained his stuff. I don't mean to interrupt you,
No,
but like,
it's
I like Elon Musk, but when I saw that, I was like, come on, like,
yeah, yeah.
give a thumbs up or a wave
Or
or,
like yeah, double
yeah,
thumbs
like do
up,
the
hang
double,
loose, hang
yeah, I mean,
loose.
just anything,
And it's just ridiculous because these people literally there are people putting on their uh, not primary side windows, but like the rear
Yeah.
windows and whatnot, like stickers that say, "Hey, I'm one of you. Please don't ruin my car.
Oh yeah.
I bought this
Yep.
before Musk joined the government or
Yeah,
whatever."
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, get over yourself. It's at the end of the day, we're all human, right?
Yeah.
Um, I certainly have never been in a position that Musk is in, and I have no idea how I would react with
Yeah.
doing any of what he's doing,
Yep.
and as far as I know, he's one of the few people on the planet actually trying to further humanity,
100%.
save humanity, uh, uh, and I said further, but better us, right?
Yep.
He just wants the world to be better for everyone.
Yeah.
And
He has said he's very pro-human. Like,
yeah, I
but
would rather take that than someone like George Soros. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
Not to get too into
No,
that,
you're
but
cool. You're cool.
it's just kind of. And then these people weren't they aren't even gonna look into things. They just take
Yep.
stuff at face value,
Yeah.
whatever certain media outlets tell them to think and
Yep.
feel they do.
Yeah.
And I've never been about that. Um, I try not to subscribe to just one,
I don't either.
but yeah, like definitely he could have used a different
Yeah,
gesture.
no, 100%. And it's crazy because like you brought up that whole thing about how people are marking their Teslas and they're like, "Hey, look, I'm a liberal, like don't shoot,
Yeah.
and stuff like that." We had some of that happen going back a couple years now to the BLM riots in Minneapolis.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
there
yeah.
were people that would put up on their homes and their storefronts, you know, I didn't vote for Trump, I voted for Biden or I voted for Hillary.
Minority owned
Yeah,
business.
they had to put out disclaimers trying to save themselves. People were running rampant through the streets, and it's like, it's,
Like the Rodney King riots in the early
yeah,
90s.
yeah,
Uh, Also, that's where that rooftop Korean meme comes from because there were, Koreatown or wherever they call it, I guess, in LA.
yeah,
They were serious about defending their businesses, and you had a bunch of dudes on top of their roofs
yeah,
and on top of their houses, and if anyone came too close, it didn't look friendly. They
yeah,
told them what's what, and it's like, yeah, if people are gonna run around rampant, vandalize, terrorize, and basically it's domestic terrorism.
it pretty much is.
Which also I'm super happy that I don't know why it hadn't been done 20 years ago, but Trump finally uh, designated cartels and other
Yeah,
gangs, as terrorist organizations,
yeah,
and that really opened up the floodgates for not just the Marines, but soft guys. Delta, I'm sure, is probably already down in there, and uh, I don't know if Marines would ever really push down in there,
yeah,
but I think with where things are at, it's kind of like, sure, besides some items in the market, here and there are a little bit more expensive right now, but that's just kind of the change of the season and shares and whatnot. Money comes, money goes, but
yeah,
I think we're definitely a lot more pro-American now,
yeah,
and just pro preserving what we stand at for and as a country.
the tide has
Um,
certainly shifted somewhat.
Kind of like how things were uh, after 9/11.
Yeah,
There was a lot more camaraderie than I feel. And then 10 years later, 2011, 2013, in there, uh, yeah, right about when I graduated high school, I could kind of feel a little vibe shift,
yeah,
and I kind of saw some stuff too, I guess, when I was uh, in my later years of high school, like
hmm,
just a couple different ways of teaching and
yeah,
certain programs being put in place. Like my sister this was back when the Obamas put that different food program into place,
Yep, I remember.
and I don't know if they ever like reverted things. I don't know what happened with that,
I
but
don't know either. I had to deal with it though. You
yeah,
know,
I just heard terrible
yeah,
things,
it impacted my school lunches.
and it kind of sucks that uh, we can't just support our future, right? The children are the future. Give them the best sorts of education. Give them the best kinds of food to grow up healthy, become the best son that they can be
Yeah,
all around, right? Uh, which I'm also real happy that uh, RFK
yeah,
uh, being in the Department of Health and whatnot,
yeah.
that's huge. I think.
Yeah, like on its surface, again, because I mean the mainstream media, not to be, I don't mean to sound like, like just this conspiracy guy, but I mean if you can quantify it if you watch the news for a couple of days,
Yeah.
the mainstream media loves to run a good, you know, string of lies, and they love to contort and blow things out of proportion, and it's like the coverage of RFK is like, crazy old man wants to get rid of sugar, he
Yeah.
wants to take our french fries, and it's like, well, no, it's like he wants America to be healthier, and it's like part of that will come with change and
Mm-hmm.
not, drinking 10 sodas a day or whatever, or not getting your double double, but like,
Yep.
but like, I mean,
Healthier cooking options too. The beef tallow
yeah,
that he implemented recently, that's huge. Like
yeah,
that was cut out back in the 50s or 40s even.
yeah,
And like the seed oils and the vegetable oils that have been used for like fryers and all this other
yeah.
stuff, it's just terrible for us. But in like uh, back in the 70s or whatever, whenever sunscreen was first introduced, but people used to not really get burnt.
Yeah,
People. I mean, too much sun, yeah, it could burn
yeah,
you. I don't truly think that it's as bad as certain uh, people
yeah.
try to make it seem. And then to shoot, what was it you were just saying?
RFK taking our sugar and our French fries and double doubles and
It's just like all around. I think that in a lot of the departments of our government now, it's going to be a lot more pro-American.
me too.
All across the board.
Yeah,
Sure, some things are going to take a little bit longer to really
yep,
get set in place.
yeah.
Uh, I mean, kind of want JD to run after
I do too.
being VP
I do
here,
too.
so that'd be exciting.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the Trump administration, when this comes to a close, I hope that when his 4 years are up, we don't throw everything away.
Oh yeah,
I hope that even if the Democrats win another election, say they win the next one,
yeah,
I hope they don't go and reverse everything. Like, because we really seem to be truly going forward with a lot of things, and it's like, like, but you're right. Like a lot of what RFK Jr. Like, yes, he's going to make changes, but like a lot of it is on the ownership of the individual, I think, as well. Like, for
yes,
example, like while we were talking here, I gave you a mellow yellow. You drank a mellow yellow. Okay,
yeah,
great. Pop is good. Soda's good. It's very tasty. It's got a lot of sugar in it, but don't drink it every day. Like before I had you over to record, I was with another guest earlier
hmm
today. He's a big fan of Mountain Dew, so him and I drank Mountain Dew while we recorded. Now what am I doing? You're drinking Mountain Dew, and I'm drinking water. I'm
yeah,
not going
man.
for another soda. It's like you want to have some Doritos throughout your day. That's fine. Have them once, twice a week, but don't eat them every day.
Don't eat a whole bag to yourself
Don't
either,
do a whole bag, and then don't chase it with a Coke, and then don't have a donut for dessert. Like,
or order Domino's or McDonald's or
yeah,
whatever.
do it in moderation.
Yeah,
Like moderation is key. But sadly, there might need to be some more kind of widespread change, like you talked about with new beef that he implemented. So it's like I think that there are, again, overall, I really think that there are a lot of trends, that are looking good for America, and I hope that they just stick up before. We keep talking here. I did notice that your mellow yellow is out. I mean, do you want some water or something?
I take water.
Okay, yeah, I'll get you
Um,
talking then, and then I'll get up and I'll get you some water.
yeah,
So like, in addition to what America is doing in terms of like our like overall kind of like culture and like this idea that we have like now with trying to reshape our food, at least consumption or dietary knowledge and stuff like that. what else do you think is looking good for like America? Like, are you looking forward to like like what could be coming with like Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency.
Mhm.
Like we seem to be cutting out a lot of the gristle, like just in like our own like federal government. Like
Yo,
like what are your opinions on that?
well, I mean, as long as it's all unnecessary people that are being, terminated from their positions in government, great, because that's taxpayer money going to their wallet, right?
Right.
So, and like JFK said back in the day, ask not what more your government can do for you, but what more you can do for your government and country.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think we're kind of getting to a point now, like I was saying too, a lot more uniformity, more camaraderie amongst Americans.
Yeah.
Sure, there's what's the word, dissidence between
Yep.
groups, but there always will be. I seen a, thank you very much, by
Yeah.
the
No
way.
problem.
I seen a, and for the pop.
Yeah. No problem.
I seen a study or research paper about population centers.
Okay.
Apparently, the ideal size of like a city, you shouldn't go more than like 100,000 people in a city,
Mm.
because apparently that is kind of a tipping point
Yeah.
for a heavily densely populated area. Um, and it's just like at the end of the day, this is home for all of us, right? Whether you're from California, Texas, South Carolina,
Yep.
New York, Minnesota,
Coast to coast.
it's Alaska, Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
And one thing too, I think it would be pretty crazy if we got a potential 51st and 52nd state.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm all for it. Think what you want about it, feel however you want, but obviously that wouldn't be like all at war.
No.
It would
Well,
be.
this
That blows my mind. Some people think it would come to that
you
between
took
us and
the words out of
Canada.
my mouth. Like people hear these ideas, and again, the media runs with it that we're gonna conquer Greenland,
Yeah.
we're gonna conquer Canada, and it's like, no, we're not. Like, well, they'll join if
Yeah.
they agree. Like,
And it's not even necessarily that they would legitimately become a 51st and or 52nd state. Who knows if that would ever
who
happen,
knows?
but I think it will just come to this point of conglomeration of countries joining together, kind of like there's a NATO, but it'll be different.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of maybe more so based in
Yeah.
the Americas,
Yeah.
because we're our own part of the world.
We are.
We I mean, you go as far north as you can, then Russia's just over the Arctic, and it's like I always thought we should have good relations with them. That would make sense, right?
I think we should strive to.
And China too, to an extent. I don't know, that those two are different sorts of governments,
They
right?
are.
But it's cool to see all these ideas being bounced around, and it's kind of funny when you hear the president say this and
Yeah.
that about Canada or Greenland. Yeah, it's very nice, very
Yeah.
nice. We'll be
Yeah.
a part of us.
It'll be
one day.
good.
It'll be good.
Yeah.
Or
You
Gulf of America.
Well, I mean, oh my gosh, like that sounds like a thing out of a cartoon. I mean,
Honestly,
like, and the fact that it actually got changed in Google Maps, like I think at the time of this recording, it actually did get changed, and it's like you wouldn't even dream of us changing the literal map titles,
no,
you know.
God, no.
And now we are, and some people might think like this is America imperialism, where we're coming through, get out of our way or get mowed down, and it's like, look, Trump laid out in this heck of a pitch. He's like, I don't know, we pay for it, or like it's mostly part of the U.S. to begin with, like,
Yeah, they're huge, like supply and food chain
yeah.
relations between us.
He's talking about doing that with the Panama Canal too. He wants to take back control of that.
I seen, yeah, that's something that never should have really left our grasp. I seen something else that Elon proposed an idea for like a different type of canal. I don't know if
And we're gonna make another canal.
yeah, something. But it um the
Isn't that crazy though? I don't mean to cut you off, but like just the idea, like, say we don't get the Panama Canal back, we're such a big dog in the town that Elon's like, fine, we'll go build our own canal. You know?
just cut straight east to west through the entire continental
That's
United
right.
States.
Yeah.
um, what were you saying before the Panama again?
Gulf of Mexico
Gulf of
or Gulf
Mexico,
of America, and
America.
how like we own it or have ownership because like we pay for it, and like there's all this trade that goes through, and stuff like that. And I'm sorry I interrupted you, and I
No,
know
you're
I shouldn't
good.
have.
There's a I can't remember if it was something about Greenland. Well, I heard that they introduced a new government system in their country now, not
Really?
necessarily to push back against what America wants to do, but to kind of like be more cohesive with America and other countries.
Okay.
So like I this is kind of where I was going. Like I like to see the evolution in real time of hey, this is kind of a good idea.
Yeah.
We're already partnered with you so much. Why don't we try to make something more out of it?
Yeah.
And oh, excuse me.
Yeah, like at the very least, like, because like Costa Rica's not a state, but like, aren't they like a U.S. territory, like
Yes.
technically? So
Yeah.
like, we could do something like that, where it's
It'd be a
like,
territory.
yeah,
Yeah.
where it's like, yeah, you're not getting a star on the flag, but you'll be a territory, you know? So it's like,
I think back last summer, I don't know, it was during 2024, maybe 23, but America, like, the government bought a ton of land,
really?
but it's the ocean floor. So, like, now we have, I don't know, 50,000 square kilometers more, but it's like off the southeast coast or something.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of funny, but like this would be more usable, right? Because
Yeah.
it's actual land.
Do you know why we did the? I've never heard of the ocean thing. Do you know why we did that? Like,
Probably mining rights and stuff,
okay,
drilling for oil. Well, I guess I don't know if they do that there, but
yeah,
one and one thing too with the Atlantic. Have you heard of the Mid Atlantic Ridge?
no,
It's it used to be a mountain range that it was kind of like an island chain, like how Japan, Hawaii, New Zealand is,
okay,
but it was smack dab in the middle of the Atlantic between the Americas and Europe. And I think it, I don't remember exactly how far north it went, but it went pretty much down the whole length of, down to like southern Mexico.
okay,
So it was a pretty extensive network of islands and land masses.
yeah.
Um, anyways, that's like the uh, that general area all up and down there.
Hmm.
They've been doing some more lidar and research, and they've been finding like potential traces of human activity there. But
In
it's
the
like
in the ocean?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Or like Bimini Road. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I mean, I have, but like, I don't really know like what it is. I just, isn't it the idea that there's this literal sunken road, and then that could lead to a potentially lost civilization?
Pretty much.
So like Atlantis,
I
like,
think so. Yeah.
yeah,
And I there's something called the reshocked structure in Africa, like one of the western countries of Africa. It looks like a they call it the eye of the Sahara
okay,
because when you view it from space, it looks like an eye. Um, I gotta take a leak.
yeah, no problem. Don't worry about it. Okay, we had to take a short break there. We both had to use the bathroom, but it's funny in the time that we took this time out, we checked our phones and our phones listened to us, and your phone literally showed up on your Snapchat feed or your Instagram feed, whatever that is. This video about this space engine, this type of engine that can go long distances in no time at all, and then you talked about this ionizing agent that could be utilized for engines, and so just yeah, tell it to us what you were just talking to me about.
Yeah, of course. And I got take it with a massive grain of salt. I am no rocket scientist.
Yep.
I just take it as I hear it, but essentially, there's if it's the engine, it says it's fuelless and exhaustless,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So that got me to think it could potentially be this ion engine. I remember reading about a few years back. Some astrophysicist, scientist type, uh, you know, thought of this idea in the 50s or 60s.
Mm-hmm.
That's just crazy. You got people that are so dang smart, like Tesla. Imagine what they could have done today.
Unbelievable.
Da
Yeah.
Vinci.
Yeah.
And anyway, so it's like you apparently this engine it uses ions, the particles, as like a mass accelerant. I don't know if I'm using wordage right here, but it essentially would bounce these particles back and forth inside of its engine. And what I had heard before was that it would only be practical in like deep space.
Mm.
You could cut the fuel off once you reach a certain acceleration with fuel, and then the idea was to cut the fuel off, and you're going to rely on this fuelless engine now, which once you reach a certain speed, and then you turn this thing on, it'll help push you even further to like, I don't know, a fraction of the speed of the light.
It sounds like it's kind of like a version of like inertia or velocity. Like you use your forward momentum to just kind of carry yourself.
I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, this video that just popped up, it's funny because yeah, this stuff definitely listens in on what we do, what we say.
Yeah.
But it looks like that they could maybe have transformed it in a way, evolved it in such a way that it's now going to be used in NASA rockets, and that's really exciting because we're going to the moon here in a couple of years. We're going back to the moon.
Really?
I think they already launched the Artemis mission is what it's called.
Oh yeah, yep. I remember hearing about that.
So there's going to be like a satellite around the moon.
Okay.
That it's kind of like another. What's the one above Earth called again?
International Space Station?
Yeah. So there's going to be one like that around the moon, or a couple, I think.
Okay.
And then there's going to be a couple of spots on the moon, where astronauts will be staying, and the Chinese and Russian and Japanese will have their spots. But
yeah,
it's just really cool because it's the.
You're talking about on the moon.
Yeah.
Each one would have their own spot.
Yeah.
So that could be like the beginning of colonizing the moon.
Yeah.
This is honestly kind of interesting too, because like Elon Musk, his whole thing is let's go to Mars.
Yeah.
Let's make Mars into a new world for us, and let's have humans there. And that's a very cool idea, a very sci-fi idea, because it's out of our reach. But like, we've already been to the moon. Like, why not just send people there? Like,
well, and why aren't we already there? Why haven't we been there since '69?
Well, yeah, like
they say, oh, we lost the technology. No, it's just the government being lazy.
The government.
Yeah. And then like, you would think it'd be a good starting point, and it probably is for. I think they're calling it Stargate.
Okay.
So it's going to be like the base of operations to launch astronauts further into the solar system, and then. So like I know with NASA, they want to land there, I think in 2027, and then they want to be on Mars by 2030.
Yeah. This is what Elon Musk was talking about too. He projected early 2030 for that. Yeah.
And that's, the whole SpaceX thing, we've talked about it. I have been watching their videos since I was in the Corps, 2016, I think, is when I first really started following what they were doing, and it's just crazy.
It's the dawn of the space age, and like people will be like, "Well, we already did that with the space race against the USSR," and it's like, we built rockets and we put people on the moon, but like we're talking about, at least Elon is talking about the idea of literally making humanity multiplanetary. Like,
and that's needed.
It is needed, and it's cool, and like, and the whole deal, and like it's just it's so funny though, like the idea that like the moon could be like, it's like how we have air travel now. Oh, you're going to Los Angeles, we have to connect in
stop at the moon for a day, and then we'll go to Jupiter. Or
you want to go to Jupiter, you got to connect from the moon to Mars, and then then we take you there. And it's like we're just redoing our own system, just now with planets as opposed to states and stuff like that.
And then how do you draw boundaries on another celestial body? Right?
That's a whole rabbit hole too, because like I remember when there's talk that back when America, or when Neil Armstrong put that American flag on the moon, there was this highly contested thing about you can't claim the moon under one sovereign nation. It
Hmm.
belongs to humanity, not to the Americans.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, okay. But it's like as we become more of a spacefaring race, you know, I wonder if you're right. Like when we go back to the moon in 2027, we're like, okay, the northern part is America. The southern part is Japan. The western part is China. Like
Yeah.
I wonder if it'll be like that, and it's like
Did you see that China sent drone or whatever to the dark side of the
I
moon
did,
a
yeah.
couple years ago?
Yep.
Um, I haven't really looked too much into that. I've seen a few photos here
Yeah.
and there,
I
but
wonder why they did that.
right, what's on the
Yeah,
dark
what are you
side
doing
of the
over
moon?
there? What are you doing where we literally can't see you for the whole time you're there? Like,
And it's just like again to touch on the whole uh, firmament thing and religion thing with space, right?
mhm.
Like, is the moon really what we think it is? Because Buzz Aldrin and a couple of the other astronauts have said kind of like cryptic things over
Yes,
the
they have.
years,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Like we, I don't know if it was one of the like OG astronauts or if this was a guy from the '80s. Sometimes they say they hear knocking on the outside of their
Yeah.
spacecraft.
Well, there's this idea like it's kind of it's a science fiction thing, but it's based on like reality is like space madness. Like if you're up there
Oh,
for too long,
yeah.
you kind of start to like lose yourself, but it's like, it's like, where is this stuff coming from? You know?
I suppose the thought of like, oh, I'm floating in this hunk of metal that, you know, is only like a half a foot thick,
Yeah.
and if a space rock came hurtling fast enough at us, we're all dead.
Yeah.
And then you look out your portholes and you see this blue and green thing, and hey, that's where all humanity is. I'm sure that has a certain effect on anybody's psyche.
Yeah. Well, it's I'm sorry, just as you were talking, again, I was totally listening. And I know I said I don't want to like be on our
You're
phones and
good.
stuff, but like you brought up, you're right though. Buzz Aldrin, he had said something, I was trying to Google it really quickly. He did say something really cryptic many years ago
Mm-hmm.
about humanity's existence and stuff like that. And I wanted to find it for reference, but whatever.
Yeah.
But no, it's like, people go like I believe it was Neil Armstrong and one of the astronauts went up there, and he said he saw the moon and the moon. He said he saw the Earth in its entirety, and he was like, it changed my perspective on existence itself.
Yeah.
He's like he's like I literally saw all of humanity minus myself and my team. They're all on Earth, like, and we're a blue marble in this sea of blackness, you know. And it's like our closest neighbor is this gray rock we call the moon,
Yeah.
and he's like, it changes your perspective on everything. And then like, yeah, and then there's this, like, yeah, like I'm sorry, what were you talking about though? Like
I would so
I was
that
losing my train of thought here.
it's all good. I did that a few times.
Yep.
So it's just the idea of like is the moon solid? Is it hollow? Is it an alien satellite that was sent here to keep tabs on
Oh my
us?
gosh, yeah.
What was it left? One of the crazier theories I've heard was it's actually an ancient human like spacefaring ship.
Okay.
And there's actually like this plays with Antarctica too. Like there's pyramids down there. There's advanced civilization
Yeah,
there.
I've seen some weird pictures of Antarctica. It looked like there's pyramids poking out of the ground. Like,
I say we just throw some napalm strikes all over it, let it
yeah,
melt a little
yeah. Get
quicker,
some napalm and get some lidar down there.
and
Like,
then we got more land to settle
and there you
too.
go. What could go wrong? Like,
One other thing that I wanted to talking about space and like the moon and
yeah,
space travel, right?
I love the moon.
Uh,
So cool.
one thing that Halo always kind of AI for instance,
Yeah.
like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Michio Kaku, all
Yep.
these huge science figureheads.
Yeah.
10 years ago, they would have been like, yeah, we probably won't have general smart intelligence for another 30 years, like 2035 at the earliest, is what they
Right.
used to say.
Yep.
But now we're at a point, it's like a hundredfold of what they ever would have dreamed.
It's crazy.
And I'm pretty sure that, Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, they all have their own more or less
Oh yeah,
artificial and like true artificial
yeah.
intelligences already.
I heard
Uh,
that Bill, not to cut you off, I'm sorry. I heard that Bill Gates is building nuclear reactors just to power an artificial intelligence.
yeah, yeah. I think I read something about that a month or two ago.
Yeah.
And that isn't that just mind blowing? Like,
Yeah.
like,
They want all that energy just for one thing, and it's a supercomputer essentially.
did you see what? Oh, real quick too. To take a keynote from Halo,
Yeah.
they have space elevators on all
Yeah.
their major
Yep,
planets,
yep, yep, yep.
and that is something that is within the realm of possibility. And I think actually NASA and JPL have taken notes from it, and they're trying to coordinate. I mean, we're talking decades from now,
Right, right.
but it'll be an essential part of cargo transport because we're not going to be able to have. Yeah, SpaceX will eventually have like a fleet of 100 starships,
Yeah.
but you can still only carry so much on a
Right.
ship.
Yeah, there's still a limit.
So if you have a couple of space elevators to bring up all this cargo stuff,
Yeah.
build ships, build space stations in space,
Yeah.
that'll just expedite this process of getting us to the moon,
Yeah.
Mars, colonize the solar system,
Yeah, they're
right?
shortening the distances by making stuff that's low Earth orbit. It's like a rest area. You just
Exactly.
jump from thing to thing to thing. Boom, you reach your destination in however long.
And AI is like
AI is crazy. That
once it's like released to the world, things are just we've
it's
had a huge technological boom,
we have.
but once this happens,
It scares me.
it scares me too.
It really does. And like I don't even like look. Worst case scenario, it's Skynet from Terminator,
Yeah,
and they blow us all up and whatever.
I mean
But
Tesla bots. I mean,
yeah, yeah, Tesla. I mean, holy crap!
those are cool.
I don't understand why he's doing that. Like, is it for nursing homes? Is it for construction? Like, why make a robot that's literally human in design and
For
like
helping those that would need assistance, like elderly
it
folk.
freaks me out. Like,
No, for sure. And the one he does like reference Terminator, Skynet in a couple of the talks he's
at
had
least
about
he's
it.
aware.
Oh, for sure. But he, I can't remember how he worded it, but the bots are made to be such a way that, I mean, unless you're wheelchair bound and like you can't move your arms, like you could push the thing over for the most part.
Okay,
It's supposed to not be like the baseline strength for it, the speed and all that. It's not like iRobot,
but
Terminator.
but Jordan, what happens if the robots don't want to get pushed down anymore? And they're like, no,
That's
that's a wrap.
yeah, I mean, even because I think he was saying by 2030 he wants to be building 1 million robots a year before then.
That is right around the corner. I mean,
And the thing AI Tesla by itself is not just a car company. It's a technology company,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
All the revenue that they brought in with their cars, like that's only going to keep increasing. They have all these at-home battery packs,
Yep.
now the robots, like they're saying that that's going to be a few trillion dollars of a market
Trillion
by itself. Yeah,
with a T. Yeah.
T. That's it's yeah, it's crazy times we're living in.
It's crazy and it's scary, and I'm not a fan of it. And I don't think we can escape it because I don't even like the idea of self-driving cars. Like,
It's a little sketchy,
yeah,
so I'm okay with it. That's my
yeah.
stance. There are, I mean, we don't live that far from our place of work.
No, very thankfully we do not.
Yeah, and I mean, how many close calls do you have? I swear I have one on my way to work and one
Oh,
coming home.
it's unbelievable. People
And
run red lights, and and it's like I will admit sometimes I look at my phone while I'm driving because
same
I
here.
want to change songs or something.
Yep.
Like even if I'm not texting, I'm still being distracted.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, you're right. You're right.
But at the same time too, that when if Skynet were to happen, then all those cars are controlled via the system could be taken over and then
Get compromised.
yeah, compromised and then oh hey, there's a cliff. We're gonna drive your car off a cliff
Yeah.
because you're not a robot.
Yeah. Well, there's just been some things about malfunctions already where it's like It's
Yeah.
like a self-driving car doesn't stop at a red light, causes
Nope.
an accident,
Killed somebody.
or it goes on the sidewalk, and it's like I get it, we're in the prototype phase. This is early stage stuff. But even the early stage stuff that's at public access is still not perfect. And
Hmm.
people are dying because of it. And I don't like the idea of these things being tested in the wild. It's
It's sad and scary for
yeah,
sure.
because like that's what's gonna happen with AI. Like, okay, this is the new AI, whoosh, and they throw it out there into the internet, and then next thing you know, we can't access our bank accounts, or next thing you
It
know,
holds us all hostage in
holds us
that
all
sense.
hostage, or like like it limits internet access, like we can't go on this or that or something, and it's like, yeah, it's scary stuff, man.
I guess I've always tried to be a little bit more of an optimist
That's
or
good. I
optimistic viewpoint in
Yeah,
my life.
I try to be that as well. I try to always be glass half full.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and realistic with it.
Yep. That too.
Uh, have you seen what some of the like Chat GPT,
I don't
OpenAI, like
I don't even like that either.
you can like
Huh?
type in anything and it'll now give you like a full blown 4K video,
Yes, I have seen this. You can go from text to video creation.
and
Freaks me out.
some people. I think there was a guy on Joe Rogan recently, talking about it, but I've just seen shorts of people, asking AI about God and
Yeah.
religion, and some of the AI is like, oh, hail Satan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Some of it's like, praise be to God.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ is the King, and
Yeah.
it's just crazy seeing the duality between it, and like, I think though at the end of the day we'll get to a point where it will be a good for humanity,
Yeah.
and it in the more developed parts of the world, I think that maybe this is in the 2100s where
Yeah.
you'll have children growing up with their own personal AI,
Yeah.
kind of like a mentor,
Yeah.
a friend, right?
Right.
Because if it's truly a sentient being, and if it will one day get to that point, and when it does, and it has, I would like to think it would want the betterment for both of us.
Hopefully it can be
Yeah.
used to better humanity instead of, hurting us. And that's kind of what Elon Musk has said when he gets asked, haven't you seen any movie ever like Terminator? Like, why are you doing this? He's like, look, it's going to happen whether we want it to or not. But he's like, if we can get in front of it, if I can get in front of it, this is Musk talking, he's like, then we can shape it as
Yeah.
a tool, not as a weapon, against us. And look, on that note, we'll bring this to a close, and I'll just say that, look, if everything goes belly up regarding AI and Terminator takes over, I promise to find you in the wasteland, and we'll join the resistance, and
We'll stock up. We'll be loaded to go,
yeah,
and
and then we'll do the time travel thing, and we'll send you back, or you'll send me back, and we'll try to save all this.
warn people.
Yeah,
Literally,
yeah.
who was it that was sent back in Terminator?
It was
Sarah,
John Connor.
John Connor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to save
Hey,
Sarah Connor.
both our names are J's,
Well, there you
so
go. Yeah.
either one works,
Yeah,
right?
it's a poetry, everything rhymes. But yeah, Jordan, look, man, you've been an incredible guest. Like I said, I knew from us talking off the mic and just us becoming friends that you bring interesting perspectives to everything, and you make me think, and I really just wanted to get our conversations recorded, hence why we're doing this, and I'm so thankful for it all. So yeah, this has really been just tremendous
Well,
and entertaining, and for myself, and I know for everyone else who's listening. Is there anything at the end here that you would like to plug? Like, would you like to say, like, you should read this book, you should check out this show? Anything you just want to say as a closing statement?
yeah. I mean, I wanted to bring this up earlier too, and I just forgot. But I want to start watching that Chosen show.
Oh, yeah.
I have a couple of buddies, that I've talked to about it, and I've watched some shorts on YouTube. That's on my list right now to really get into. I've been watching Dragon Ball Daima though, so that's kind of
Yeah.
taking precedence. Playing Halo with you,
Oh, yeah.
Fortnite with friends. But I think because I've seen the Bible, the Word of Jesus and God do good in not just my life, but those around me, and trying to stay positive and have that mindset, sort of what would Jesus do in a situation,
Yeah.
right? Golden rule: treat everyone the way you'd want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
Just be kind. And if like last night, I probably should have tried to say something, because I know that that's in scripture. You need to, I forget how it's exactly phrased, but stand your ground
Okay.
almost. Um, I want to try and do that. I
For those
want,
that like mock scripture, is that what you're talking about?
yeah, and it wasn't even, they weren't, my friends weren't mocking. It was just, I don't want to say delusions, but it
That's
was
okay.
just, different
Yeah,
mindsets,
yeah,
right?
it's all right.
And I get that. I've been there. I was there.
Oh, me as well.
Yeah,
All this requires exploration and being curious.
yeah. And I'd like to say too, thank you for having me on for
Oh,
one,
yeah.
but being a great person to talk to, get to know, help me understand certain things with my own faith, right? And
Well, thank you.
yeah, I'm definitely trying to be the best version of me, and I think
Mm,
that being a follower of Jesus is key in that.
100%.
Um, I guess one book that I read this a couple years ago, and I don't know if you'd be interested. It's called Empire of the Summer Moon.
Okay.
The author is S.C. Gwynn. This is a book about the last of the Comanches
Okay.
uh, down in Texas, New Mexico area, and they were like the last indigenous tribe to be actively fighting against the American government, right?
Mm,
And it's just like for me, I guess it was a really good read. I don't know if it would be for any listeners, but if you're into history, if you're into recorded American history accounts,
yeah.
like it's a great read all around. Um, I guess I don't really have any shameless plugs,
Hey,
but
don't worry about it. Like
um,
it's all good.
maybe next time we do this, I'll have something to kind of throw in to
Oh yeah.
check out.
No, don't worry about it. I mean, what could be better than a good book, to pick up and take with you? So yeah, but yeah, like Joe Rogan, he has guests on multiple times. You're welcome back anytime you want. So yeah,
I'd love to.
this has just been a far out conversation. You've been a far out guest, and this is the Far Out Podcast, and we will see you guys in the next one. All right, bye bye.